Hey guys, welcome back to the grind. This is the weekly grind, which is stuff I learned this week, which in the off season was mostly a mishmash of random thoughts that have stuck with me through the week based on research I've been doing, conversations I've been having in podcasts or on Twitter or anywhere else. In season, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So what have I learned this week? I should be higher on the Giants, just in terms of total volume. I'm already higher on Golladay, but it's just been a hard button for me to push because they're on the Giants. But talking to RotoSurgeon on a RotoViz podcast today, actually, is one of the reasons I'm really pushed for time, because my schedule got out of whack. But he was trying to make the case to me for Sterling Shepard. And Sterling Shepard, since I primarily target players through volume, I want my players to have more touches than your players. That's the basic rule. For me, anyway. Like Sterling Shepard, the minute he said it was so unsexy. But since the Giants are one of two teams, should definitely at least double their touchdown rate because they were so historically low last year. Because they improved their receiving core with Daniel Jones, because Saquon Barkley is coming back, because Daniel Jones does not have to be good for them to double their touchdown rate. There's infinite reasons why the Giants should be better for fantasy. Not that it's going to coalesce into a significant share that will produce a fantasy level starter, but it's kind of, and this is the way it came across to me listening to RotoSurgeon talk, was it's like unsexy Miami. Like, there's all these reasons that the team could be better than we think, given the history, given what's happened recently. We're kind of down on the team as a whole, but we've seen some interesting players. Sterling Shepard's had multiple top 24 seasons. Kenny Galladay's had a top 12 season before signing for a big contract to go to the Giants. Saquon Barkley is, or used to be, considered the best or top 2 running back in the league. I recently was re-ranking my re-ranking players for Superflex this week, or today. And I found out that I am like one spot higher on Saquon Barkley, which at that range of ADP is like a big difference for someone who, leans wide receiver pretty often outside the elite backs. So I guess he used to be. He is still for me. Either way, you've got good players that have shown evidence they will co-opt enough volume. Evan Ingram's had a 20% opportunity to score every year since his one good fantasy year, and it's really been a touchdown problem. Now, Daniel Jones is an issue. I really think that's the root cause, but there's infinite reasons why those players can co-opt enough volume of maybe, once again, a bad, poor, below-average offense, but still produce fantasy points, and they're coming at a significantly lower ADP, which is the case for Miami, except Miami has a lot of maybe they won't get injured this year, whereas New York has a lot of they are now no longer injured players on their roster, like Saquon Barkley. So, it's like unsexy Miami, and for the price, I should be more interested. What else did I learn this week? I learned that so many things I actually did. For a start, I learned that my projections, I was trying to evaluate my projections because I'm continuing updating the seasonal ones, and I really have to get to doing the weekly model now. But I was looking at the overall team projections for. Team projections. It's in here somewhere. I always have too much going. Here it is. And I just kept wanting to see what they were like compared to last year, just to get an idea of how well I was doing. And now I already had passing attempts and rushing attempts compared to last year, and there's up and down expectation. And I realized I didn't really have enough coming down. There should be more teams that regressed in passing attempts a little bit. I thought on a per game basis, even with the 17 game sample, the per game basis really gives you a decent look compared to last year, even though there's an extra game this year. And so I ended up importing last year receiving yards and rushing yards, and also last year touchdowns and rushing touchdowns, just so I could see where my current projections are based on last year. And so I ended up creating this new view of the team projections in the in the Patreon only, obviously, projection sheets. The quarterback projections are going to be used on 2QB for the relaunch of their site, and I think they want to use some of the other projections, and I just said, yeah, sure. They're Patreons at this point. They pay me $1. It's fine. So yeah. I realized I needed to be able to compare last year more directly to what my projection model was spitting out on a per game basis, just to get a better sense of where I was at. I've already made some adjustments based on it. I expect Baltimore to throw. Apparently, I expect Baltimore to throw about 5 times more a game, 5.5 to be really expect. Again, that still puts them as like league bottom in terms of passing attempts, but I do expect their passing attempts to increase just because of natural regression and the addition of additional wide receivers that I think are better than what they've had. Also writing my latest article, which I posted a draft version of for Patreons, because, I'm just that way. Such a good guy, but it's gone over to DLF now with some fine tunings. I realize I like Marcus Brown a lot more than I did. I remember what I felt like about him as a rookie, and looking back at what he's done through the first 2 years of his career, it's actually pretty impressive. One of the things that I liked in the research that I did for that article is note that we often compare Marcus Brown to past wide receivers who were good for Baltimore 3 or 4 years ago, but no wide receiver has co-opted a 25% target share like Brown did last year since the last time they had a top 24 wide receiver in Steve Smith. So he's getting a similar role to past wide receiver ones, and I also enjoyed the way the fluctuations in PPR points meant that in some years of the last 4, he would have been a top 24 wide receiver last year, and in the last 2 he wouldn't have been, because we've seen this escalation in receiving production and just a passing game in general over the last 3 years, and so he's actually kind of suffered from that. But in different seasons, in the years that we've been playing fantasy, his 2020 campaign would have been a top 24 season. Again, so there were just all these interesting data points that don't mean he's any better than he was, that the Ravens are going to pass significantly more. I'm a strong believer, and at least one of the receiving additions they just made in the draft, and I really like a depth they made as well, with like a 5th round pick as well. Again, rookie videos are abound on this channel, so go check those out if you're interested. But Marcus Brown himself on that team with this low passing history, the entire time he's been there, that team has been passing twice, half as often, not twice as often, the reverse, half as often as that team Steve Smith was on when he had a 25% target share. Now, all target shares are created equal because it's an equalizing effect, but for some reason I find getting 25% of a team passing 25 times a game, literally, a little more impressive than 25% of a team passing 42 times a game, which is about what Steve Smith's Baltimore Ravens were doing. I mean, it's not actually different, but for me, it hits home that Marcus Brown, while he's been in the league, he didn't Laquan Treadwell, he didn't even Devontae Parker, it didn't take a while to get there. He's been impressive in that situation every year, and he's entering his 3rd year. He's one of the potential 3rd-year breakouts, and I broken down for this article. Is he going to enter the top 12? Likely not. No one in Baltimore is likely to have a top 12 season unless you project him for a lot more pass attempts, even than my +5 from last year based on my projection model. But I think it's interesting that he himself has been good. They've improved the receiving game, and the pass attempts should increase even just a little bit, and it's within his range of outcomes as a 3rd-year player. In fact, it's the most common year that players break out into the top 12, which also struck me as odd, and why I wrote the article in the first place. The 2nd-year breakouts are the players you want in general, but if you're looking for players that break out to top 12, like 30% or more, depending on the date range you look at, break out into the top 12 for the first time in year 3, not year 2. And that makes some sense in the same way that, a smallest percentage of them break out in year 1 because there are very few Justin Jeffersons and Odell Beckhams and Juju Smith-Schusters who did it in year 2, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting point. I also made the case from some other 3rd-year players, or at least the positive signal. Again, breakout year doesn't mean it's now or never, or they're more likely to do it then, but it does make them more interesting players to go look at and see if you're too high or too low, if there might be value on them, and that's the way I approach the article. The other thing I'm working on right now is a value article, which really I find difficult, because I talk about values and and buy highs and buy lows like everyone else all the time, but I am very much, especially in draft, I'm a value hawk. I want to get the players that are falling that I think are better than normal, and also I kind of like every player at a certain ADP. So no matter what question I get asked on Twitter, if it's the right value, if it's the right place for it, I can like any player, and I do in fact like every player at the right cost. Some of that cost is, but it is fun to pick a list of players that you're allowed to victory lap on. Not values, not go get your guys, not buy highs. And this is all leading on from my conversation with Sam Wallace about his RotoViz articles. He produces articles every year, like 3 running backs at a value, 3 running backs to buy high on, and the same for wide receiver. And I find it a really interesting process, and I want my own list, you know? And from there, I've got to here where I'm like, instead of value or buy high, it's more, here are the players that if I get them right, I get to say, look, I got them right, because they're values, so they're drafted outside of the range where it's meant to happen, but also that's great for fantasy as well, because if you get a value below ADP and scores above it, that's basically winning. When you get more points for less capital, that's how you can drastically improve your team. Well, one method of it at least, and the one I'm always trying to search for, the one we're mostly all trying to search for more often, find James Robinson. It's not so much that James Robinson was a top 5 running back last year, which he was, it's more that you got him for the price of a kicker. That's really the difference-making aspect to that top 5 season, or a big part of it, should we say. In the same way that Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, and DeAndre Swift, who everyone likes more because they weren't cooked by the draft, did it, but through a very small sample size. But it doesn't matter because you paid relatively little for them, a rookie pick or a trade that wasn't Saquon Barkley. And through those games that really mattered towards the end of the season, they produced at that level. Again, you got more for less. I really think that's the difference-making aspect to some players. It's not so much the seasonal view, although I like to use the seasonal view to project and predict players more often because it's the most predictive. But it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily roll into the value in fantasy. It's that difference-making aspect to it, that differential between what you pay and what you get. Anyway, I went into that too far. So where was I? Yeah, and I really want to kind of roll that into a very short list at wide receiver and running back of these are the guys. And again, the concept for right now in the current iteration, I've written it like 7 different times, with about 40 different players, is who my victory lap guys, if you like, which also makes me sad because, you know, guaranteed none of them will hit, or only one of them will hit, and that's a limited number of victory laps, my man. That's not fun, but you gotta do what you gotta do for content, I guess. So that's the other thing I've been working, reading, and thinking about this week specifically. Is there anything else? Only about a billion things. I created different draft boards to try and look at players by round, and then try to, again, sort them into targets, because that's one way I was trying to think of who are my guys, and they're all my guys at the right ADP, so it wasn't quite working out until the recent iteration I was just telling you about. Some interesting news on the Discord front. Who, if you listen to this, probably definitely in the Discord. If you don't know Chris by now, you should. But Chris, big stats guy, this fella, at Christopher Bean, he frankly is an OG of the fantasy space and of the Twitter space as well. I'm a big fan. I've been talking to him for years. He was posting on his timeline about one of his sheets. He's got a comp sheet where he plugs in players and it spits out comparison players from previous years. Specifically, uses it a lot for rookies to try and come up with comps for incoming rookie into the NFL. And he was asking who got hold of one of his, because he doesn't really share it. It's messy. It's like one of my actual spreadsheets, which is just full of notes. And it's not really a public domain thing. It's just he shares the screenshots of the results more than anything else. But he shares a link with certain individuals he thinks are alright and good people and just wants to have fun with data. And he found one of the copies he'd sent out to someone had been drastically edited. And in his words, improved. They'd inserted drop-down menus, have got rid of unnecessary tabs, and done lots of different things to it. And he was like, what? I left this one way and someone tidied my kitchen while I was out. And so he was asking, and it turns out it was us. Connor, I see you, baby. Apparently I didn't know you shared the direct link to his sheet. I thought you were sharing your versions of it, and I try to pay attention to Discord, but through large stretches of the day, I only have half an eye on it, and I'm just one man. Now, Connor shared it in good faith, and the people who edited it were doing it in good faith. They weren't, all the citations were in there, they weren't sharing it as their own work. They were just editing someone else's sheet because Chris had shared it with editing privileges, and Connor was like, this is pretty cool. And I know he'd been hesitant to share it at some point because he was like, I don't think I should share the actual one. But apparently at some point he did. I've now removed the links. Now, to be clear, Chris wasn't mad. I talked to him privately and he was like, no, I just wanted to know who had done it. But I thought it was a good test run because we share a lot of information and a lot of data and a lot of sheets, and I have a lot of fun in there. And honestly, part of me was a little proud that Chris just stumbled on to some of all the hard work you've been doing just for fun behind the scenes in fantasy, and was remarkably impressed with it, by the way. But the other part of me was like, no, this is a good learning moment, teachable moment, I called it, I believe, in the but yeah, we should really have permission. If it's someone else's sheet, even if it's someone else in the Discord, you should ask, can I share this with people with editing privileges? Like, let them know exactly what sharing it means. They're going to edit it, they're going to copy it, then they're going to stuff it in their own databases and probably reinvent the wheel 7 different times. They are going to go nuts with this. If you're going to post someone else's stuff, they should not only know that, they should give permission for that, and they should know what it entails. Otherwise, just like share stuff you own or you create, because again, not everyone's gonna be as lucky as as cool as Connor, and also as nice as Chris to just be interested in fun of having data. So it was a good test run for, oh my god, what if that was someone who's a real, very privacy conscious individual and didn't want their data shared or played with or improved. So we didn't get lucky. It was just two people in good faith, and Chris was just surprised. But I thought it was a good moment to actually remind of us all in the Discord that while it's fun, let's just make sure we don't get sued, okay? Because they're probably gonna end up suing me because my name's on it, and I don't got nothing, so we can't go there. So that was fun, and I learned, and it was fun to talk to Chris again. Cause, you lose track, and you don't talk to everyone every day, and this was another good fun reason to talk to Chris. And again, Connor's not in trouble, although a little bit, not really. And Chris was very great about the whole thing because there wasn't a problem in his mind, so it wasn't actually a problem. But I did find it, it was something I kind of learned this week, or it's something that happened this week at least. I guess before I get... Yeah, why not? On Twitter today, there was a big problem. I couldn't actually see the original tweet, but it was from someone from Player Profiler, and someone from somewhere else shared it, and apparently mostly off my timeline there was drama on Twitter today. I don't know the full context, but I do know it was roughly about, and if I've got this wrong, ignore it, because I don't know, I couldn't see the tweet, I was not really involved, and I'm not interested in being involved, but it led me to a thought, so I'm going to share it with you. Someone said, if you follow me, I'll answer your question, and someone else said, that's a shitty policy, basically. I don't know. Here's what I'll say. I feel incredibly awkward asking for money and support and follows, and mostly I try and take me with incredible grains of salt, and I don't take myself seriously. But it does take a lot of work, and I do really appreciate the follows, and I do really appreciate the Patreon support, and I hope that follows from doing good work instead of having to point that out. Now, honestly, I think that's not business-minded. That's not... there is no harm in saying, hey, I'm doing really good work, would you like to see it? Give me a follow, give me a share, read my article, join my Patreon. Those are all very fair things to say because it is a lot of work. Now, I go a different route with it because I just enjoy engaging with this community a different way. It's how I'm built versus how someone else is built, and neither is the right or wrong way. Curate your timeline and your time in this fantasy space any way you have the most fun. I'm good with it. I will say people who are more likely to encourage engagement, like give me a follow, watch my video, hey, could you review this, are much more likely to do well in this space, and that's not just because they're pushing it, it's because you and me as an audience respond to it. So if you don't like it, stop being that kind of audience member. Honestly, I don't mind. I need to be prompted. I watch YouTube videos and I read threads all day, and I only think to follow people on Twitter when someone's like, give me a follow. I'm like, oh yeah, follow. I enjoy that person's content and thoughts on fantasy football, I want to follow. But I don't think about it most of the time because I try desperately not to think about those sorts of things because that's the way I'm built. So the reminder or the suggestion is a good thing. I don't think it's a negative thing, and that's the way I am as an audience member as well. So yeah, I don't think it's wrong to say, hey, follow me. I personally will always try to answer everything or do all the work I can to help anyone out in the fantasy space. But at the same time, like, if you're a patron of mine, I'm going to. If you're not, I'm probably gonna do it. I'm probably gonna get around to it. But if life gets in the way and a week goes by, I'm not gonna have in the back of my head that person who asked me a question. You're probably gonna have to re-ask me at best, okay? Because I'm gonna forget. Whereas if someone who supports me or is on the videos all the time or is in the Discord asks me to do something or help them out, like, that's part of the benefit. And I'm sorry that sucks, but also so does money in that way, and so does capitalism, but that's what we live in. And also, I don't think it's wrong that you would feel more compelled to help someone supporting you in doing whatever you're doing than someone who literally can't show enough. It wants your information, wants your opinion, but following is too much effort or some sort of insult. Again, I don't know the specifics. I literally can't see the tweet because of the way that person chooses to create their fun in fantasy is to restrict who can see their tweets. And that's perfectly fine by me. I think we should do that. If that's how you are having fun, you should do that. So that's not shade either. But I don't know if the tweet was someone complaining that someone else wouldn't answer their question, or someone saying they, hate answering questions from people that don't follow them. Honestly, either's fine, but if you're an audience member complaining, like, if clicking the follow button's too much effort, why do you want their opinion? Because honestly, none of this stuff is easy. I know we do it as a hobby and I don't take myself seriously, but it's really not easy. Involved, but it seems like a non-issue. But I do think as an audience member in this space, if you don't like something, don't engage in that. That was my takeaway. What else did I on Twitter? Oh, you can download... moving on to a new lesson today. You can download about 10 different video editing programs and not end up with a video editing program that you like. So if there's any video editing in this, it's because I finally found one. But for now, I'm about to uninstall it's actually about 6 or 7 different programs that I've tried tonight, and I hated all of them. So there we are. That's what I learned, what I've been thinking on, what's been happening in my fantasy space on my timeline, as it were, this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good week in the fantasy space yourself. If you didn't, next week's better, I guess. I sure hope so. Let me know what you think. If there's anything you want me to dig into this week specifically, I've got a podcast episode. I've got to record both for YouTube and also, for the podcast space. I don't know how to separate those out with words, but there you go. And also, every week I'm trying to make this video. I'm trying to do a live stream Monday and Tuesday and then record my Dynasty Crossroads episode, but I'm trying to insert other videos in between. If I find a good video subject, I want to separate that out. That's a lot of content to make every week, and now I'm saying it all, so I'm probably not going to hit that extra video every week, but it would really help if you have ideas or suggestions or something that you want me to go take a look at or share my opinion on in this kind of format. Let me know. Comments below, DM me on Twitter at Pahowdy, and that'll help at least with the planning stage of it, so maybe I'll get to do them more often. And again, I appreciate it. Thanks very much. And where's my little doohickey here? Yeah, thanks again. I'll talk to you again for the podcast episode this weekend. Damn right. Absolutely gonna do that on time. Promise.